Today, Microsoft made a huge comment on something that's happening for the Xbox that everybody's been waiting for. I have to be honest, I think that this is something that is going to go over extremely well with the fans of Xbox. We've all been waiting for this news. We've all been anticipating it, and now it looks like it's going to come true, and maybe even sooner than we expected. Now, there's a huge reason why Microsoft has been sort of quiet on this front, and I feel like one of the reasons is that, because it hasn't gone through yet, so obviously people are going to maybe speculate. I also think that Microsoft is very much in a war with Sony again. Yes, Microsoft in the past has maybe discounted Sony and thought that Sony wasn't a big player or wasn't their competition, but to be quite frank with you, I feel like it's very interesting that Sony gets away with saying, hey, if Microsoft gets this Activision deal, I think that it's one of those things that honestly kind of happens in gaming, right? Where there's a little bit of a hypocritical side to this. And I, for one, am kind of fed up with that. And I'm glad that Microsoft spoke up, and I'm glad that they kind of took a few shots at Sony. I want to get into this, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews. Please like the video. I'm looking to get 100 likes on each of my videos. It's a small goal, but it's a goal nonetheless. So let's do this thing. All right, so Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella says he's very, very confident that the Activision deal is going to gain approval. He says, and I quote, "If this is about competition, let us have competition," which flatly says exactly what they needed to say, and I think that it doesn't get any better than that. Sony's all about competition. They buy games for exclusivity and things like that. So let's have some freaking competition, shall we? Let's let things go both ways. If Sony's so confident in what they can do, then they should shut up and take it and just let a company do what they're going to do. Microsoft isn't Amazon. Microsoft isn't Google. So as far as I'm concerned, at least there's that to it, and Xbox has been around for quite a long time as well. Now, granted, I think that it's very interesting that so many people feel a certain way about this. The proposed $68.7 billion acquisition of Call of Duty's publisher would be the games industry biggest ever deal, comfortably surpassing the $12.7 billion Take-Two and Zynga merger completed earlier in the year. And this deal is currently being scrutinized by some regulators concerned about antitrust issues during a time of increased consolidation in the gaming industry. Of course, many acquisitions of this size will go through the scrutiny, but we feel very confident that will come out, according to Nadella. Last week, the UK's Competitions and Markets Authority said its inquiry into the deal had officially been expanded to a second phase due to a number of antitrust concerns. Notably, the watchdog is worried about the impact the deal could have on PlayStation's ability to compete, given that the deal would see Microsoft gain ownership of the Call of Duty series. But Nadella told Bloomberg Microsoft is either the fourth or the fifth biggest player in the video game industry, and that PlayStation is Sony, and Sony is the largest. So if this is about competition, let us have competition, he said. Earlier in the month, Xbox boss Phil Spencer said Microsoft had committed to making Call of Duty available on PlayStation for several more years after Sony's current marketing deal with Activision expires. During this period, Call of Duty games released for PlayStation would have feature and content parity, according to Spencer, which is funny because right now Xbox fans don't get feature and content parity, as PlayStation pays for exclusive features. They get the betas first, they get everything first, and game modes and all this kind of stuff, and it just is kind of ridiculous the way that this is kind of gone about. And I think that it's an interesting situation, but it's also a situation where when we kind of see how things have kind of cropped up lately, it doesn't really it doesn't really shock me. Now, Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan, who reportedly is seeking access to future Call of Duty games on equal terms in perpetuity, responded by calling Microsoft's proposal for keeping the series on PlayStation inadequate on many levels. The current deal between Call of Duty and Sony is believed to cover this year's Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2, and a new game from Black Ops developer Treyarch, which might arrive next year but might not arrive till 2024. So there's still plenty of time. And I also think that it's one of those things where, how can Jim Ryan, honestly, how can he claim that that they're going to do anything, that Microsoft should do anything with a property they own, right? I mean, let's just be real here. At one point in time, there's games out there that were exclusive to one platform or another, and then they go multi-plat or whatever. I don't think it's really anybody's right to kind of set this off the way that they have. I think it's really kind of crazy that Jim Ryan thinks that it's okay for them to buy, all of these things, and that's just one of those things that, like, it just baffles me, right? I'm frustrated by it, because it's like, oh well, all these years Sony has all these games, and even stuff like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Listen, I'm not a big Deathloop guy. Like, I could have played it at any point. I mean, it's free on PlayStation right now. It's free on it's in Game Pass. It's not really my type of game, but again, Sony bought a year exclusivity. They tried to buy exclusivity with Starfield even, and they did the same thing with Ghostwire Tokyo. So yeah, I don't really understand the thought process behind them complaining about this, right? They buy Final Fantasy games. They buy, everything. They corner the market on Spider-Man. These are just different tactics that they've used time and time again to get content, and I don't understand how that's them being competitive, and how how Microsoft, when they're doing it, it's not. It's anti-competitive or whatever. So, it's just one of those things that's very frustrating to me personally. And you see people kind of reiterate or hope that this deal doesn't go through or whatever. And to me, that's just kind of asinine. I think that obviously when we live in a different day and age where, clearly Microsoft and Sony have different kind of ideas on what they're going to be doing in the future, but also, they have some of the same ideas as well. Obviously when we consider that Xbox is doing, better than it ever has, or it's doing better than, than any other Xbox in the history or whatever, I think that really goes and tells you everything you need to know about, the future of video games. And, for me personally, I think that it's interesting. I also think that it's one of those things where, Sony likes to use the word competition, and they talk it up and about how it's important and all this, but when people are outdoing them and outspending them and kind of outmaneuvering them, then all of a sudden it's not anything. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's disappointing to say the least, and I do hope that in the future we can see what's up with this, and I hope that we can see Microsoft kind of go all in with this. I think that people, what I'm seeing on social media, for instance, right, like right now, a lot of the PlayStation fanboys, and this is no offense to the actual fans, because there's a difference between fans and fanboys, but the PlayStation fanboys are pretty much up in arms, and they very much sounds like whenever they're saying something, it really does kind of sound like they're trying to convince themselves, and I find that to be ironic. Right? It's like they know that and I'm not saying Xbox is going to go out there and win or anything, but I think things are going to be extremely close, and I think Microsoft is able to kind of accomplish things that, people didn't think they'd be able to, and so that's really, really good to see. And, listen, at the end of the day, I applaud Microsoft for going out there and truly trying to be competitive. It's what we asked for, right? We asked them to be competitive. They go out and do it, and Sony cries. Like, what the hell? I don't understand it. So, anyway, with that being said, I'm going to link this. You can check it out. I hope this gets done sooner rather than later. It's going to be awesome to see when it comes to seeing stuff like Call of Duty, Diablo 4, all on Game Pass, and the ability to have other games out there. I think that's going to be awesome. So, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up, crap gamer out.